Welcome everyone to the November board meeting for Ignite CDA. If you'll all rise, please, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Before we get started, we have a little housekeeping to do. I'll need a motion to remove item 5, which is the Atlas Project Subcommittee RFP renewal committee. So
moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Next up is public comment. Is there any public comment? Please come forward. Seeing none, I'll enter. Oh, that would be you. Yeah. Come on forward and give us your name and address, please.
First name is Randy, last name Colbert, 2308 West John Loop, apartment 307, south of Mount Hink for 6 years.
Thanks.
I would just like to say I'm pro-growth, pro-development, but just doing things the best way possible. I've lived in a construction zone for 6 years, and it's going to be ongoing for another 6 years. And all along the Spokane River, the sawmills have been replaced by dwellings like dominoes, but Mount Hink is kind of the last domino. And maybe instead of choosing one developer over another, Mount Hink by itself really isn't that bad. Maybe it's time to think of doing it the right way.
Doing Mount Hink the right way?
Yeah. Should it be developed?
So are you talking more of a natural space? Or,
Yes.
Okay.
Reclaimed, not ignored. What was there is now at Ramsey. I get that. But that doesn't mean it's safer at Ramsey than it was at Mount Hink. It's just a different zip code. So anyway, that's all I needed to say. Love living there. It's a wonderful place. You know, my dream would be for the next urban renewal district to be across the river. There's 300 acres for sale that are pristine along the river and undeveloped on top. But it just seemed like Mount Hink could be the kind of the stopping point. Hey, let's pause, pray, and process and do things. Maybe the best way, not just the last domino that we've had along the river. Anyway, thank you for listening. And
Thank you
God
for
bless
your
you
comments.
for all you
for coming.
do.
We appreciate it.
You know, I'd like to be part of the solution, not a problem. So, is it okay if I sit
Thank you very
and
much.
listen to the meeting?
Pardon?
Absolutely.
Good. Where's everyone else?
Yeah,
That's what we're wondering.
that's a good question. Maybe it's too cold. Thank you very much. Now I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Thank you. Item 5 being removed, we're on with the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of a short report today, so I'd like to invite Phil Boyd with Welch-Comer Engineers up to give us an update on the Atlas project.
Okay,
And maybe the latest on Mount Hink.
yes. Thank you, Tony, and Chairman Hoskin, and board members.
Welcome.
So just 2 items. The Atlas update, Phase 3, formerly known as Mount Hink, because the mountain is for the most part gone. So it's really Phase 3. So we'll talk about that as well. Not a lot happening on 1 and 2. The landscaping is going in, some limited work. These are some pictures around areas 3 and 4, the Toll Brothers area. If you've been out there, you see they're under construction. The the plants are obviously small here. You can see some of them are protected with overturned pots for the winter. This is at the kind of the style that's at the intersections, and then trees along the street side. This is the trail, and then this area still has to be hydroseeded. The other side of the street was hydroseeded, so not a lot of just very limited landscaping work going on. You guys saw this slide last month. The 2B work is going to start in the winter. This RFP will come forward to the board in December for your consideration to put that out, those parcels out on the street. The underground work will start in December, run through the winter and spring, and then it'll get paved out in the spring. And then phase 3, or formerly known as Mount Hink. So the board's heard us talk about before, we're hauling material to Atlas, the unsuitable material. When we came across material that was suitable, it had less than 6% organics in it. We stockpiled it, hence the 6% soil. Now we've got to the bottom, and so we're starting to place the 6%. We're still hunting for more 6%, and we're evaluating options for finishing the grade based on the ultimate development configuration. So this is another photograph. So we're looking east. The Celtics Way is up here. And notice, and I'll show you this, I'll come back to this in a second, but I wanted you guys to have this picture in your mind. The trail that parallels Celtics Way is right here. So notice the elevation difference between here and here. And I'll show you how that's relevant in another slide. For your other bearings, this is Area 7 down here. This is Area 6, Active West development. And then this is kind of the remainder of some 6% material. And then the last bit of Old Mount Hink is underneath that. And you can see the stock, Lariviere is taking the stockpile and placing it in this area here and bringing everything up. So this, you'll have to look at this for a little bit, and then it'll make sense to you. So this is one of the tools we use when we're evaluating cutting and filling to try to balance the site, mass earthwork. And so the red is where we have a substantial cut, 50 feet or below. This kind of purpley color is where we have a fill. So we need that, just like this picture here. So this is where we're filling, and we need more material. So this area right here is this area right in here. So the process that you see occurring right here, just outside the picture, is we're picking up stockpiled material and depositing it in here. So that's this stockpile. We came across it earlier, and we're bringing it in here. This red area here, the top of it, for the most part, is 6% material, and we're picking it up and bringing it into here to try to get the site up as much as we can, but we still need to cap the whole site with structural fill material, at least 5 feet of it. And so we have a ways to go, and most of it occurs right in here. The part that, the kind of the main point for the board in looking at this is you can see there's a street alignment in here. So what we've laid in here is the least amount of earthwork project that we could build a neighborhood in. So, and the reason we did that is we speculate on how much 6% material we have in there, and we only want to buy or acquire for free from contractors that might want to bring us structural soils the smallest amount possible. So that's one end of the spectrum. And so what happens is you see these topographic lines right here that are all very close together, which means it's steep. That's what this north side of it would look like. So you would kind of have a neighborhood in a hole, which may not be super desirable. And so at some point, when we really get down to the brass tacks of making decisions, and the board says, gosh, let's just wait, because we don't necessarily want a neighborhood that's down like that. We may want some elevation difference because it provides some sound buffering, but what we would do is just end up waiting longer to acquire excess soil materials from job sites across the region, because contractors are frequently looking where they can tip for free. So like the Thomas George material, all that material is coming to Atlas. 17,000 yards of it will come here. So this is just a, kind of a progress explanation to the board and just a little bit more on the neighborhood, because this will be another decision point for the board, is what do we make that neighborhood look like? You haven't seen this configuration before. This is one of our new engineers, Jordan, did this. And you can see we went for a very small lot size here with the idea of creating a lower, potentially a lower price point for a product. So you have a little bit of a diversity of product in there. Because I think as the board knows, a lot of it has been higher price point. And you can see there's some townhomes in here as well. So there's about 66 single-family lots here, approximately 3,000 square foot lots, pretty small, and 17 townhomes. So that's one scenario you'll see hopefully in December, because we're still collecting, trying to figure out how much our soil expense is going to be, and we would develop a pro forma for the board that says, you know, here's the revenue stream, here's the cost stream, here's the net, and we would do this scenario and maybe 2 or 3 more on it. So is there any questions? Because I know I covered a lot of material there.
Literally.
Commissioner English.
Well, if it did get filled in, but still some kind of that wall that kind of runs along by the, would there be like boulders there? Or what would that wall look like? Or
So that's a good question, and there's a couple of different options there, and that's what goes into the part of the pro formas that the board will see here, again, hopefully in December. You can go in here and build a wall, but you're gonna spend $40 a square foot to build the boulder wall there, which gives you more real estate. So in theory, you can sell a slightly bigger lot or a slightly more usable lot, or you could slope the back of the lot and sell that single-family lot that your backyard has a slope in it. And if you don't like a sloped backyard, gee, that's what we have to offer. So those will be some of the value trade-offs that we'll go through working with our Heartland, our real estate consultant, is if the yard has a slope in it, what's the value of the lot? If we put a retaining wall in the back, what's the value? We just went through that exercise in area 14 and 15, the ones that, the RFP that we just worked through. We presented 2 different scenarios to buyers, one with a little steeper and one with a little flatter. The current buyer has said initially, we want the little flatter one. And so the board will Ignite will potentially spend a little bit more money on that one. But we hear both sides of it from different developers, and so we can do it 2 different ways.
Olivia.
So going back to the contour map, it looks like there's quite a bit of elevation gain, or not gain, between, for the roadway, like 2170 to 2155, about 15 feet. Is that, am I reading that right?
On the north side?
Yeah, north and then west, heading west. So I was just wondering, am I understanding you correctly that we will have to have quite a bit of fill to be able to even make the infrastructure work for the roadways at this point?
Well, so we'll have, because we're putting, in this area, where we're placing 6%, we have to put a minimum of 5 feet of structural material over that. In other areas where we don't have any 6%, we don't have to do anything.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the structural fill that we have to import.
Just the structural fill,
Yeah,
okay.
we're taking this, because we're so conceptual at this point, what we're doing is taking this kind of simple analysis. This is not simple, but we're assuming that we need to fill the whole site with 5 feet of material. And what is that number? Because it just gives us a big round number. And it allows us to contour the site in a desirable way, because we might end up pushing some of it on the north side. We might terrace the neighborhood. So you can envision, let me go to this one. You can envision where these homes would obviously be at the same elevation, but we could potentially terrace between these two, so you'd step them down a little bit. Then there would be this road, these would be at the same elevation, but we could step here as well. Because a step neighborhood would look a little nicer, give you opportunities to look over the people in front of you. So we're kind of early in the process. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did. Thank you.
Okay, but it's,
When are they going to start building the boulder wall behind Area
right.
15?
yeah, it's, as Commissioner Chapkus said, they've started on it, yeah.
They started?
Yep.
I saw the boulders a little spread out there. It looked like they dug a footing or something.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, and we've been Some of it was delayed through a building permit. Once we got the building permit, we still kind of delayed a little bit because we were waiting for the current buyer to get with us and talk about how they want the final grading in there. Because that was one of the options, as I said, we put into the RFP to kind of sweeten the deal, give them some flexibility and potentially accommodate different home types in there.
Other questions, comments?
And I don't want to derail a conversation, but I think it's relevant because we're talking about Mount Hank to address the public comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because we have discussed a natural feature in that, so I don't know if you wanted to kind of go
Sure.
over.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad to give the background on it. So just refreshing I guess the public's memory. When we originally started out, we didn't know what to do with Mount Hank, and one idea was, do we just leave it as a natural area? It doesn't generate any increment. It's going to consume money to turn it into a natural area. But the reason we didn't have a great option with it is because there was no place to land the unsuitable soil materials. Where do we take that unsuitable soil? When the ITD pit on Ramsey Road became available, that's when the board started evaluating and say, well, gosh, if we could move the material and develop this portion of our property, perhaps in a manner that addresses some of our housing needs that are not way out on the prairie, because if they're way out on the prairie, they promote traffic congestion. Perhaps we could do that in this location. The city had looked at this location from an open space area and said, gosh, we kind of got our hands full with the parks that we do have. And we certainly don't want it to be an active park that we have to maintain. We would look at it perhaps as a natural area, but it's just one more thing for the city to maintain, which I think the two council people here might have thoughts on, the challenges that you're currently experiencing with the labor force. And so ultimately, that's what led us here is let's move the material. We can do it in a way that allows us to pay the bill, build the neighborhood, sell the property, and generate increment, but also perhaps, subject to the board's decision, address another price point in our housing market that our project is not currently addressing. Because going way, way back, that was one of the values that the board put on this is we don't want this just to be a luxury neighborhood. We want it to try to serve a broad demographic. And it's been a little bit of a challenge because the builders are coming in and building expensive, nice homes. So did that capture,
That's
Commissioner
perfect.
Metz?
Thank you so much.
You bet.
And I would just give feedback too that I always have to remind people that part of the decisions and trade-off is in order to get 3,000 feet of running feet of the riverfront and preserve the park and all of that we had to maximize everything else in order to pay for that and make it work. And now with the potential of providing at least some capacity for some other housing structure and maybe, given the timing that the market kind of softening, we might have an opportunity to, create kind of a bonus feature there. But I certainly don't regret that everything we did was to secure that waterfront, and so.
It is a good point, and I get that question on occasion as well, is why is this neighborhood so dense? Why is everything so small? Because when we started this in 2017 and 2018, the market wasn't rocking like it is now. And so we had to have the agency, the board had to have that type of density in order to make the financial feasibility project work. So we headed down that path, and obviously the market changed, and so we're benefiting from that increase.
Thank you.
One other, Commissioner, Chairman Hoskins, if I might, I wanted to address a question that Commissioner English asked me just before the meeting about the monument signs.
Oh,
In this area. So, yeah, it wasn't on my agenda item, but if I might, I'll just give the board a quick update. It's the monument sign, the board remembers there's one in there. We've held off on this one because we wanted to wait and see what shook out here, because you don't want to put the monument sign in the wrong space, and we didn't know exactly what was going to develop here. And then there's the monument sign down here on Suzanne. This one's given us a little bit of a challenge on two fronts. One is some of the gas infrastructure that we understood and had marked that was over there is actually over here. So that adds to a challenge from construction standpoint. And then also the encroachment permit if we go through the city process, we'll probably be into some sort of creating a separate parcel, perhaps doing a right-of-way vacation. So we're now headed down the path of perhaps looking and getting an easement from these folks here, because it would allow us to move the sign away from the gas infrastructure, out of the city right-of-way. And we would build a little bit, we would eliminate one of the walls we plan to build, and we would add to some of their wall in this area, which would be a benefit to them, because they would have flatter backyards. And we would put our monument sign on the top of the wall. So those are some of the, I don't know if gyrations is quite the right word, but that's what we're working through in that area.
Well, and it
Good
just,
analogy.
that we spent, a lot of time and money, and that was a very important feature. So, yeah, we don't want to end up, shorting it on, kind of that's not a very good placement or something. So, if we got to go some extra mile, we.
And we totally hear you, and that's the direction that we're headed to accommodate that, because everyone, I think, at least our team, loves the sign. I know that the board spent a lot of time picking those features out, and so we intend that when we get through the snow season, we'll be coming out of the ground with it.
Okay.
Okay?
Anything else?
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Tony. Now it's time for board commissioner comments. I have one. Last month, I forgot to tell everybody that Commissioner English's term was up, and he said that he would love to continue on, and that was ran through the mayor and the city council process, and they've approved that, and so welcome to another term.
Well,
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Do we get a cake or something?
Well,
But,
peanuts.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
work for
peanut,
We
okay.
work for peanuts.
And then I would just share a comment that I went to a meeting that was sponsored on Saturday, and actually the article in the paper today about Kootenai Health and looking at the options, under the code and nonprofit status, and, saw the follow-up article today that, that's not in the works. But it was, because, Kootenai, and of course the new district that we formed, and some expectation, of different things. So I was very interested in it. I guess one of the main takeaways is, at least my sense from the legislators that were there and the new ones coming in, is that they might want to tweak some of that code that got passed, but nobody's talking about eliminating, and they want to put, my main takeaway is they want to put, potentially put that to a vote. And I would say, given that situation, I personally would favor a vote for that kind of a major decision point, if they even were going to go that way. And if they don't, they don't. I'm not a big fan of advisory votes and things, but there are times when I think you've got to get that sense. But I did mention to a couple of them that, because I said, we want to have local control, and that's who needs to decide. And I said, I agree, but I wish you would have the same thoughts about local control when it comes to local option taxes, and won't even give the opportunity for the local voters. But that's a different sermon, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was kind of my sense of the meeting. So.
And then one other item, Dan volunteered to be the school district Ignite member liaison there, because they Tony got an email from their new superintendent, and so then Dan volunteered to work with the school district also. So thank you for
And we
that.
had our first meeting today, and that's, yeah, very interesting, and, boy, a lot of good groups that are represented, and, you know, of course, the things that are coming up with their levy and bond and things, and I appreciate that they're getting that kind of community input, so, yeah, I'll,
Perfect.
once in a while during our comments, let you know what they,
Perfect. Appreciate it.
sure.
Any other board commissioner comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and Jeff, that's a wrap.